Are you ready? What's my name? What's my name? Say Kareem Ali. Say Kareem Ali. You're listening to
Are you serious?
the Hip Hop Debate Show.
Okay, so hear me out.
The official podcast of Kareem Ali. In about 2 seconds, Kareem Ali will begin to speak. Okay. Kareem Ali TV. This is the Are You Serious podcast where we discuss various topics through the lens of hip hop culture. And today I got my co-host as always. Today's Slick Vic Low. Yesterday was Slankster Hughes. 3 shows ago, he was the Lyrical Leviathan. And I don't know why the fuck you're wearing the LA Lights glasses on.
Look, man, this is the official Ginyu Force power reader where I can look at whack MCs and see the deficiencies in their souls.
So it's like they live. You just seeing the reptilians walking around.
That too.
Do you know that in Vietnam they used to have these infrared glasses that instead of the green scope that they got now, they had the red scope. And some people reported seeing things like demons from other dimensions flying around. One guy was actually shooting at them. There was nothing there. Like the clouds weren't moved, but the things.
I mean, you might have saw Al from Quantum Leap and shit.
Oh shit! Not the fucking hologram. Also on the show, man, I got my man Skills, Mega MC, producer, one half of the West Baltimore duo, Liberated Scarfaces. And I've heard some of your stuff is very, very dope, but we heard that you're a young man who's very knowledgeable about hip-hop in general, and you're a true practitioner of the art form from the stuff that I've heard before for what Slick Vic has told me, because he wouldn't have nobody on the show that was on some bullshit. This is real hip-hop over here.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I think it's just important to study who came before you.
Yeah, so you can take it further. That's what Mike said. That's what I've said. You know what I'm saying? Kobe said it. Everybody. All the greats have said it. I'll also give a shout out to Dirt to my man Calvin Snook Marcus for the shirt. Ownership is gangster. I actually bought a stripper this shirt because I was somewhere and she asked me, like, oh my God, I like your shirt. So I told Snook to ship out another shirt so I could give it to a whore. I probably should edit that out of the show. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that at all.
Yo, got hit it with the beat. You know what I mean?
I should edit that out. I don't know why.
I mean, it's just Baltimore language. That could be anybody.
Yeah, a whore could be anybody. But in this case, she was an actual. I should stop talking.
Woman of the night.
She actually sold her birth canal cavity for a profit.
Practitioner of the world's oldest profession.
Yes. You know, her labias were used as a built-in ATM machine between her leg units. Let's talk about some hip hop because this is going off to I don't want to take this to where it's going.
Oh, so we weren't discussing Little Kim. Okay.
Oh Jesus.
Oh shit.
You know that little white boy to me. Jesus Christ. So today we're going to talk about Nasir Jones. In the last, I want to say the last decade on into this one, Nas has had an incredible run. Really, in my opinion, starting with Life is Good. There may have been a snag food with to be honest with you, I would take it back to the last decade. I thought Distant Relatives was a classic. That he followed up was Life is Good. The Kanye West album had some mixed reviews that he did. It was a short one. But after that, you go on 3 King's Diseases and 3 Magic albums. And not everybody liked every single one, but the work and the output that he's put out, the lyrical supremacy that he's expressed, has Nas battled himself into the GOAT conversation. A lot of people over the last 6 or 7 years have told me that it's Jay-Z, I should just accept it, that they're tired of people saying that anybody other than Jay-Z is the greatest of all time. Me and Slankster had a conversation the other day about whether or not Nas was there and some of the other people that were in that conversation. And one of the people he brings up all the time is William Griffith III, Rakim Allah. And we had that discussion as well as to whether or not Nas was better than Rakim, whether he was better than KRS-One, better than Biggie. Has he moved ahead of all of the greats of the past and battled his way beyond Jay-Z or anybody else's opinion to be the #1 greatest rapper of all time? Or does he just sit at the table? What do you think? Skills Mega, I'll let you go first.
All right. First off, I think that Nas was already in the GOAT conversation before his new 2 series. I thought
I
that
agree.
he cemented that a long time ago.
I
How
agree.
many people really wanted it with Jay-Z at that time? And that happened at the detriment of New York hip hop. You know what I mean? When New York was fighting each other, the South banded together and came up, and it's been hell ever since. But like, I feel like this for real. I think that Nas was already in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think with songs like Rewind, which is one of the best storytelling songs in hip hop history, also just
Point
the
I made.
impact. A lot of people weren't rhyming how Nas was rhyming and weren't rhyming with the seriousness that Nas was rapping with. Like Nas had funny punchlines and things of that nature also, but like Common, for example, there's a big difference between Common on Can I Borrow a Dollar to
Mhm.
Resurrection. And that
Mm-hmm.
main difference to me is the influence of Illmatic. And a lot of
Mm.
people switched their style up after Illmatic came out. So if
Mm.
Illmatic doesn't happen, a lot of other things don't happen. Like when Nas said
Mm.
on Ether, name a rapper that I am influenced, like that wasn't just a bar that he threw out there. That was a very factual thing, in my opinion. So as far as him recently being crowned, I think that there is no number one definitive GOAT, but I think there's a Mount Rushmore. And I
Mm.
think that they're honorable mentions because in 50 years, it's hard to just say 4 people. But I think that from a commercial standpoint and a impact standpoint, you could put Jay-Z up there. But as far as actual rhyming ability, I don't think that you can clearly put him over Nas, especially
Mm.
when Nas won the battle, but he didn't win the war. You feel me? Because it's like you ether him, and that becomes a term within hip hop and outside of hip hop for when somebody gets put in their place. But it's like you then sign to him, so it's like Nas won the battle, but he didn't win the war. New York lost in the end as a result of that, like I said earlier. But I just think that his longevity is incredible. We've seen longevity before. Like LL was in the game, what,
Mm-hmm.
30 some years before he started to mainly focus on acting, right?
Right.
But LL didn't maintain that respect lyrically that Nas did, and Nas doesn't have a cannabis incident. So
Mm. The incident.
yeah, you know what I mean?
So I mean, good points. I mean, it's like he's talked about Nas basically with Illmatic having the Rakim effect of paid in full, and also Nas did have a trip up with the cannabis incident like LL Cool J had. And he eat the Jay-Z as well. What do you think? Is Nas sitting at the table of the GOAT discussion? Should we just accept Nas as number one? How would you rebut that? This is not a Nas versus Jay-Z thing per se.
Right.
That's another show. But what has Nas's impact over the last 10 years been?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could rebut that because I largely agree. I think that in the last decade, and even before that, unquestionably, Nas has already been in the top 5 dead or alive
I
conversation.
agree.
So whether you want to also term that as the GOAT conversation, then I agree. But I think with not only the last decade, but I think really primarily the last 5 years, really, with those 2 trilogies, like to me, though he arguably put out 6 classics in less than 4 years. And so that put him to me in the top 2 or 3 discussion, like
Hmm.
beyond just the top 5 did. I guess you could say the upper room of the GOAT discussion.
The upper
Um,
room.
and I would say too, because when you look at Nas's longevity, his influence, his impact, as well as even mass appeal, like all of those statistics combined, I don't think there's any way you could have kept him out of the top 5 discussion. And now, to me, I don't see how you could keep him out of the top 2 or 3 conversation. It's funny you mentioned a cannabis incident. What's really interesting and telling is that what Nas could have had was a Jay-Z incident, but instead he flipped the table and turned the Jay-Z incident into an Etherine. And I've always argued that you could never put Jay-Z above Nas because there are always going to be trace amounts of ether in Jay-Z's soul. Like that's
Hmm.
just how impactful that
Made his soul
body
burn
blow
slow,
is.
man.
That body blow to him was. I remember the day Ether dropped. Like
Me
it
too.
is a moment in not just hip hop history, but in my personal hip hop history. Because me and my cousin was back when the X was still on in Baltimore on the radio, and they played that joint before 92Q, and we was ready with the tape deck. Like here we go. and it was verses to a different diss track Nas did about Jay-Z and a couple other people, because he was going at a few people at the time, and it was verses to a completely different song called Everybody that had dropped on some of the hip hop boards back in the days of hip hop battle boards, and somebody had leaked these verses. So we were like, we already know what's going to happen, and we thinking we going to hear this song, and then Ether comes on and just like blows everything out the water. We was like, this what? What are these for? Like, we was bugging. We recorded it and then we listened to it like 70 times straight.
That was one of the points before Ether. People thought Nas wasn't going to turn out to be what he was supposed to be, what he started to be. Because you remember he had before the Stillmatic album, he had a song called Stillmatic that came out on 88.9, H to the Izzo, M to the Izzo, some rap version of Cisco.
Crying everybody.
Like, but it wasn't Takeover. It wasn't what Jay-Z did, but
to me, I was already debating that Stillmatic freestyle was still lyrically better than Takeover. Takeover had people,
but it's always comes down to what's a better.
So then I was like, yo, he's gonna shut this down, and sure enough, he went beyond what I thought.
So I can't disagree with what either one of you are saying. I always thought Nas was in the conversation. He was always.
Real quick though, another thing I would say though to one of Skill's points is that it's interesting. Excuse me, what you said about him winning the battle but not the war. I think that's really an interesting take because of him eventually signing to Roc Nation under Jay-Z. So I mean, I kind of agree, but I also would say I don't think that necessarily anyone won the war. Like you said, all the New York hip hop both won for the culture but lost at the same time in terms of like how they could have been united. And when they did unite, it was kind of like after all of that. But it still led to that, and I think it's really interesting that I would say no one won the war. I would say it ended in a ceasefire. But when
after Nas beat Jay-Z on Ether,
Nas beat him in terms of like the head.
After he beat Jay-Z, there was no reason to continue it going. Once they squashed it, then Jay-Z found a way for.
I mean, he tried with Super Ugly, and Super Ugly was.
But Jay-Z found a way that maybe they both could make money together. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's kind of like when Bernard Hopkins beat Oscar De La Hoya. De La Hoya didn't keep a beef going. He decided to ask Bernard Hopkins to join Golden Boy Productions, Golden Boy Promotions, and they made money together and been doing it ever since. So I don't necessarily think that's a loss for Nas or
that's why I say I don't think anyone won the war, but they both benefited in a ceasefire. Because ironically, the I Declare War concert where they publicly squashed it and came together ended up being something that projected that created a further projection for.
And no one else had to die in hip hop. I mean, that was a good thing. It didn't. Imagine
if Tupac had done something similar, like how much that would have benefited the.
I think he would have had he been given a chance to live longer. But now we're finding out that Puffy was like, no.
Exactly. Not jump too far into that rabbit hole, but yeah.
I'm gonna say this though. I don't think that Nas's last 6 records were arguably classics. I think the word classic is thrown around too easily. I think most of them were very good. They were very good albums. What'd you say?
I didn't like the first King's Disease.
KD1, I don't know. Magic 2, I didn't really like that much. The other ones were good. Magic 1 was the one that sticks with me that I continue to listen to over and over again. So that must be great to me. But some of the other ones, they had great records on there. I wouldn't call them a classic, but they were good pieces of art. His rhyming ability maintained a level of greatness on those, but I wouldn't call those records classics per se.
I mean, that's why I say arguably. I don't necessarily disagree. I think it depends on who you ask. Like my favorites are Magic 1 and KD 3. And I think my least favorites are Magic 2 and KD 1. Like KD 1, I really appreciate it for what it did at the moment. But I like KD 2 and 3 way better, even though KD 1 won the Grammy. But I think that too is very telling to the overall hip hop culture at the moment in the mainstream. Like if you listen to KD 1, it had records on it that did appeal more to radio play and more to Hit Boys audience. And I think that was brilliant because that way they kicked the door in getting the Grammy, and then the next 5 albums they could do whatever the hell they wanted. So
let's give Skills back a chance to respond. Let's give Skills a chance to respond.
I was glad that Nas got that Grammy, but I thought it should have went to Freddie Gibbs. In my opinion, I thought that he had the best album that year as far as hip hop goes. But
sometimes those awards they rewarded someone for what they've done over a period of time because they didn't give them the recognition where they really deserved it. So it could
And
have
it's
been like a
hard to
makeup
put much
award.
stock into it at this point. Once Macklemore got it, it's like, all right, your rating system forever skewed. Like, I don't know what the fuck going on.
A lot
Word.
of this
So it
stuff is
was
It was
political.
good that Nas, you know, it was
A
kind
lot
of
of
like
those awards
Nas
are
deserved it a lot of times.
a lot of those awards are political, and they're bought and paid for behind the scenes. You just don't realize.
Right.
word.
I think, you know, as purest, the Freddie Gibbs joint by far was like a superb album and probably superior on many levels. But and when you weigh in the politics and the industry aspect of it, Nas had certain records on KD1 that actually, you know, whether intentional or not, played to that aspect of it. And I think it was just a good thing for the culture that it happened.
Yeah, I agree. I just have a couple questions because it's very interesting that we started off talking about Nas, but also we started talking about Jay-Z, right? Tell me if I'm bugging, right? But to me, Jay-Z is more so on the Mount Rushmore for impact more so than skill. Not saying that he's not skilled, but I can't say whether or not I think Jay-Z is on the same level lyrically or better than a Black Thought or a Pharoah Monch. And I don't think that Jay-Z has the discography of a Nas or a Ghostface. I'm just saying. If I'm bugging, let me know, but I don't think I'm wrong.
Ooh.
Well, I could speak to that. And I could also, at least for 50% of that, my response would be, are you serious? And here's why. Because as someone who was like growing up in that era when Jay-Z and Nas were both putting out some of their like really like initial like really impactful records, this was always a conversation, right? And for me, I've always said that two things can be, you know, simultaneously true and appreciated. Like I always reference these very nerdy comparisons because I'm a freaking geek, but I mean, obviously. And so it's always to me similar to how you can't love Star Trek and Star Wars, or you can't love Marvel and DC. And you can appreciate both. And in hip hop, it's very similar that, you know, either you're a Nas guy or a Jay-Z guy. And I don't think that has to be necessarily true. Though I prefer Nas by a lot, probably, I've always had an immense appreciation for Jay-Z as well. And a lot of people sleep because of his commercial appeal over the years and the impact that he's had in the mainstream side of things, which says a lot to his savvy ability as, you know, the business partners he's been with, as well as, you know, his ability as just being a skilled hustler.
Jay-Z is a really great lyricist, though.
As well as some of his, you know, other connections, and I'll just leave it at that.
I'm not saying that he's tripping, but Jay-Z's a great lyricist.
Jay-Z is an incredible MC, and to the point where back in like the Rough Rider and, you know, early rock era, he used to intentionally, because he was always felt like he was being slept on with his lyricism, he used to intentionally seek out people who everyone was saying was the nicest on the mic at the time and battle them in person. And for all intents and purposes, many say beat them in person. Busta Rhymes, DMX, Jizza, like he was just hunting people down. Like, yo, let's go. And so,
1 second. Well, I have to, no. 1 second.
Jay-Z gets slept
one second. Well, he does. 1 second. But you got to stop this. Jay-Z beat Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes was 12 years old.
That's just what I heard.
He was 11 or 12 years old in the 9th grade or whatever. And you keep on talking about Jay-Z beat Busta Rhymes. Come on. He had a chance to really even develop who he is. Let Jay-Z try that now.
We were both in high school around the same time.
Yeah, but Jay-Z
didn't they go to high school together?
Jay-Z like him, Busta, Biggie, Cameron, they always like the same height.
But Jay-Z was already an older nigga. Busta Rhymes was probably like in the 9th grade. He might have been 14.
I'm glad he said that, of the new school era when Busta Rhymes was the one walking around battling everybody.
But look, but you would expect, at the time, you would expect Jay-Z. I tell people all the time, right? Lineage matters, right? If Jay-Z used to be Big Daddy Kane hype man, Jay-Z was underneath Jazzo also. Like, but because of that lineage. Exactly. So he's supposed to beat somebody, like, but respectfully.
But also at the time that Jay-Z and Busta Rhymes had this so-called battle, this was after Busta Rhymes' first 2 solo albums had dropped.
Nah, that's not when that happened. That happened when they was in high school.
No. There was another time when they were like in a cypher in high school. But during the time when Jay-Z was going around and like seeking out people in the industry who people were saying were better than him, was like around the beginning.
I have no knowledge or recollection of that. I don't know anything about that. I've
heard both Busta Rhymes and Jay-Z talk.
But what about the people that felt like DMX beat Jay-Z when they were cyphering?
I mean, so that one is really well documented. There's footage of that, and some people think that. I kind of always thought, DMX's energy and presence stood out more than necessarily his rhymes. And that
it could win you a battle.
It can, especially
it can sway the audience a lot. I mean, and
Jay-Z
the content of DMX's rhymes too.
And that was the discussion at the time. Was like a lot of people were saying, "Yo, who is between DMX and Jay-Z in terms of who had the most hit records out?" Because in like a 1 year span, DMX had like 5 #1 singles.
So just a second, I got my man. Let him go to the country. I got my man Jammer One coming to the show. MC producer, the great Jammer One, the greatest live performer. Jammer, say hi. Can we hear you?
Like, well, I feel like
But wait,
you Jammer?
Jammer might just be like, I think that the Ella Funky Homo Sapien is better than all of them. No,
he might. Jammer, say something.
Yeah.
So Jammer, we're talking about Nas's run over the last decade. Has he effectively, with the last 6 or 7 records, has he battled himself effectively into the GOAT conversation?
He already been in the GOAT conversation.
Okay. There are many people who, at certain times of Nas's career, believe that he wasn't as good as he was supposed to be, or he didn't live up to his hype. And over the last few years, many people have just wanted us to accept that the greatest of all time was Jay-Z, and we should stop talking about it. But you're saying that it was already Nas. Who do you think is in the GOAT conversation, sitting at the table with Nas and Jay-Z and some of the others? And is Nas effectively #1 because of his longevity and his ability to carry his lyricism and keep it on the same level for about almost 30 years now?
Well, Nas is #1 in a lot of people's book. He's #1. Like I've never heard anybody talk about GOATs without mentioning Nas, especially in our generation.
They shouldn't. I've heard
a deeper question for you might be, what I was saying before is if he was always at the table in that conversation of top 10, top 5, do you think his recent run of this dual trilogy of albums has put him into the discussion of top 2 or 3?
Oh, okay. Top 2 or 3? I don't know.
Who could possibly be over Nas? Who did more work than Nasir Jones and stayed relevant for that long at that level? Who are the top 2 or 3 in your opinion that's above Nasty Nas? I know we put you on the spot here, and it's tough to name just one, but I know you have 2 or 3. Say his name. Say their names. I know you.
Well, you gotta say Jay-Z.
Okay.
As far as mainstream,
Skills back in, he can't take the Jay. Oh my God.
As far as mainstream, you gotta say Jay-Z. You gotta say Eminem.
Oh my God. What is the phrase? What is the phrase for the podcast?
Are you serious?
Are you serious?
Well, we talking mainstream.
Oh my!
Are y'all talking mainstream relevancy?
Well, we're talking the combination of.
Nas has a combination of both underground supremacy, mainstream success. That's why I feel like he's in that conversation, maybe even #1. I don't like the way Skills Mega scoffed that. It's interesting that he is annoyed by the Jay-Z mention, but the scoffing at the Marshall Mathers bothers me deeply. I can't, because the skill level of Eminem is ridiculous, and I can't. It hurts my stomach a little bit.
Well, the thing
I want to punch you. You know, you're an Elzai looking motherfucker. You know that Skills Mega. You look like Elzai.
You know what's crazy, yo? I get the comparisons. I get, bro. I get 4. I'm not even gonna go there, bro. But that's crazy. You said that.
Elzai
That's
looking
really
motherfucker.
crazy.
Stop hating on Eminem. You're a Detroit nigga too.
I mean, I have something to say about that, but I'm real curious to Skills. What would your answer to the same question of who were the 2 or 3 that you would say should be in the discussion with Nas or potentially above Nas?
I don't think I can.
If not Jay-Z or Eminem, clearly.
Yeah, clearly. As far as putting people over Nas, I can't really do that. But I would say, in the same conversation, I would say Doom. Like, he may not have the commercial success, but he has fathered 2 different generations of MCs. You feel me? Like, there's no Tyler the Creator or Earl without MF Doom. Rock Marcy has a kind of similar style as far as his rhyme schemes. The beats are very different, but as far as how he writes, it has
It's a
very
very
much.
nuanced underground hip hop. I don't think Doom has the commercial success to be considered on the level of someone like Nas. I just wouldn't say
think it's a
skill wise
testament.
he's up there.
I think it's a testament that Doom's impact and influence is still that great without the commercial platforms. Is
among some groups of people,
among way more than you would think or know. And I think that is one of the
I would think or know
I'm telling you, like, he's the underground Jay-Z. And to me, I think that that is the reason why I think that it's valid for Doom to be mentioned.
Some people would want to put a spear in your chest.
He did it without
that niggas don't want to put a spear that they want to take your COBD heart out.
Funk, bro.
He did it without a major label. So I put Doom. Wait, real quick. Because Skills really touched on something. I put Doom in like the top 10 conversations when a lot of people won't mention him for those exact same reasons this Skills said.
So you do it to fuck with him.
Jay-Z, I would put in the top 3 discussion. Eminem, I wouldn't, but that has a lot to do with some of the weaker albums Eminem had in the last decade.
Jammin' One, so your top 3 is Jay-Z, Eminem, then Nas?
I don't have a top 3. I'm just answering the question the best way I could.
Okay.
Because I'm not really a big fan of Nas. I'm not a big fan of Eminem, but I really like Jay-Z.
Wow, that's very interesting. Why are you not a big fan of Nas? That also hurts my feelings. Like I don't want no more beats from you for a little while.
I mean, that's a fair answer because a lot of people's answers for that are usually based off of their bias of their own preferences. Like I know mine are like Nas has been one of my favorites.
But to answer the question objectively, yeah, I would say like for this particular conversation, I would say Eminem, Nas, and Jay-Z. As far as longevity, mainstream appeal, yeah.
I think that's legitimate.
I like MF Doom being in there, but he is underground.
But he's at the top of the underground.
Not too many people know about him.
One of the most, I don't want to say, because he played up the supervillain thing to the extreme, you feel me? But like,
I used to feel like Mos Def was the underground king, especially after Black on Both Sides.
But he was on a major label, though. A lot of people who they associate with underground because of their sound were actually on major labels. MF Doom was not, Tech Nine was not. Like those are the real actual underground kings type of thing. And so something that happened a few years, like maybe a decade back, to me that really illustrated how powerful Doom's rock in the water ripple effect was from the underground all the way out was when Ambrosia for Heads bit your thing, Kareem. Kareem was doing it first. He was doing these comparison posts on Facebook. It was getting a lot of hits and a lot of attention. And then Ambrosia for Heads bit that shit. And they did a whole March Madness style tournament of getting votes and doing polls. And in the final fucking 4, Doom beat Jay-Z. He beat Jay-Z on a mainstream hip-hop site. Doom got more votes than Jay-Z. And to me, that was 1, a victory for real hip-hop, and 2, it showed just how powerful Doom's impact really is. And this was like 10 years ago.
So you saying that MF Doom is better than Sean Carter?
That's not what I said.
I'm saying this. I would say it's...
Say it if you're going to say it, nigga. Say it.
I think he is.
No, I said it earlier.
Better than Sean Carter. He ain't more entertaining, but... he better.
He's damn entertaining too. That villain thing spoke to the entirety of Black nerd culture and beyond.
For fuck's sake.
Again, this was 10 years ago. Doom's influence has grown exponentially since then, but at the time, it still was able to have that result.
So it's 4 people on the Mount Rushmore, right?
True.
That's how Mount Rushmores work. I always have a problem doing that.
Because that's just how Mount Rushmore lives.
That's a weird Mount Rushmore. Nas, Jay-Z, and Doom.
My Mount Rushmore has Nas on it. Maybe number 1. Listen, my Mount Rushmore is probably Nas, Jay-Z, Rakim, and after that, it may either be Biggie or KRS-One.
Yeah, that's mine. But except mine is definitively KRS-One. It's 4.
Okay, I'm thinking about just the impact. As time moves on, we start to forget about people that came way before, and we have recency bias, which is why Biggie or Tupac could move ahead of KRS-One. I actually would like to have Biggie and Tupac as like 4A, 4B, but Rakim can't move out of my top 4 because of everything he did. If there's no Rakim, there's no Nas. And there's no Wu-Tang, there's no a lot of people. And so Rakim really has always been my number one. But recently, I've kind of had to move Nas over Rakim just because I just felt like he had a better career. I don't necessarily think he's a better rapper per se, but he's had a better career than Rakim. So I moved Nas ahead, Jay-Z because of his commercial success and his skill level. But my top three is definitely Nas, Jay-Z, and Rakim. Then there's Biggie, Pac, KRS-One after that. Somewhere down the line, I would have Eminem, Busta Rhymes, and Lauryn Hill to round out my top 10 or 11 or however.
Lauryn Hill is better than Jean Grey.
It's debatable.
It's debatable, but I think so. Lauryn Hill has
a lot about Jean Grey that I agree
skills,
that
Jean Grey is nice.
Jean Grey is nice. She's really nice.
At least she's the same level to me.
Controversy works. Plus, I got a pussy, but even with that, niggas scared to push me. Who's a pussy first? I love Jean Grey, and she has a round butt muscle. I saw her live.
I
would have squeezed at a fire march with a smuggle on me, so I just decided to stay in the crowd. But that's very misogynistic.
Mine is very similar to yours, Kareem. Like it goes Rakim, Nas, Jay-Z, KRS-One, and then for 5, Biggie.
I thought we decided the last show that Nas is better than Rakim. I thought I don't.
No, you said that. I didn't say that.
Mine
is still Rakim, Nas, Jay-Z, KRS, and then Biggie and Tupac got a breakdance battle it out in the afterlife for 5.
Yo, so for me, if I had, just for the sake of this argument, for real, I would say in no order: Nas, Jay-Z, Ghostface, Redman, or 3 Stacks. Ghostface, Redman, 3 Stacks. Somebody would have to be taken off. But...
I can't put none of those guys.
If we're extending to top 10, 2 people who most people don't have the overall hip hop acumen to really discuss that I would put in there are Doom and someone who didn't mention, but I think not only should be mentioned, but I would put above Eminem if we're talking, melanin deficient MCs, and that's R.A. the Rugged Man.
R.A. the Rugged Man is the nicest white rapper to me.
I agree.
I can see why y'all would say that. I just don't think to be the greatest, which is a measure of accomplishments, that some of those people have the commercial appeal to be able to be considered there. Now, if you're talking just skills, like just ability, then the list is probably
hold on.
But see, to me, commercial appeal should never be the deciding factor for real hip hop.
Yo, I gotta ask though. Nobody mentioned Pharoah Monch. I'm sitting here.
I did earlier.
I love Pharoah
definitely in
Monch.
mine.
Yo, I said earlier that Jay-Z.
Yeah, Pharoah's in mine. Pharoah had commercial records and all the other statistics, so Pharoah's definitely in mine.
Okay, because I'm like, Ride a Rugged Man over Pharoah Monch?
Nah.
I don't know about all that.
That would be an amazing discussion to have, actually. They're both some of the greatest rhyme writers in the history of the planet to me.
No doubt.
Yo, Jam, I asked earlier, does Jay-Z have the discographies that Ghostface and Nas has? And does he have the same skill as a Black Thought or a Pharoah Monch lyrically?
Yeah, we once did a show about how would Jay-Z survive in a cipher with like Redman, Pharoah Monch, and some others. And
y'all niggas had Jay-Z coming out number 1.
I had him at least being right there.
I think Redman's going crazy on him. Oh, are we talking about now or back then?
Just in general.
We just take people in their prime at their absolute best with all the stuff that they've, amassed. I mean, Jay-Z is someone who does more with less lyrically. You think because it's a lot of space between these rhymes and he's not as wordy, that means he's not as good, but that's not true. Jay-Z is a phenomenal MC. I'm not saying that he's better than...
I respect street knowledge and I respect game. That's why I like Jay-Z. I could understand liking a Pharoah Monch, but a lot of that ability is kind of like a Coltrane, right? Who's just masterful. He's like what do they call it? Virtuoso or something like that.
Avant-garde.
It's way above the head of like just the average listener. And you have to
made a real similar comparison
in that art to understand what they do. You know what I'm saying?
We made a real similar comparison in the other episode between Coltrane and Miles Davis being akin to like maybe like a Pharoah Monch and a Jay-Z or
This is a
Nas.
good conversation. I like this. This was good. Some of the shit I don't agree with.
The jazz comparison actually is very.
It does. It does. I don't like the fact that Rakim's name wasn't mentioned enough. I think Doom is ranked a little too high for some of y'all. But other than that,
that's crazy.
It's a little too high.
I mean, I don't know. It makes
a little too high.
But
a little bit.
You
serious?
Yo, dude,
serious. It makes me question your level of, hip hop nerddom a little bit, Kareem. Like,
bro, I love Doom. I fucks with him. And that Food is one of my favorite albums, Bad Villainy. But we start talking about Nas and Rakim and KRS One. I don't know if I would put Doom there.
But my question is it only because of their mainstream appeal and platforms that makes you think that way?
No, I think Rakim and Nas are better.
I mean, I don't disagree. I
think Busta Rhymes is better. I think they're better.
Here, if I interrupt, don't tell them that I'm here.
Man, they can we hear you now. Yo, are you serious podcast?
Shit. If you ain't listening to Young MC, I ain't trying to hear a damn thing.
You said on Young MC.
So I have to stand here today as what I was when I was born, a black man.
Your racism bounces off me, I'm bulletproof. Your prejudice gets deflected, I'm bulletproof. Your hatred can't penetrate me, I'm bulletproof. Our minds can't be shackled no more, nah, we know the truth. Yeah, from the spot that Malcolm stood, looking out through the window, I'm looking out over my hood.